Intertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
With jazz improvisation, basic brain activity is fundamentally different. When you improvise, the internal network, which is associated with self-expression, shows increased activity. In the outer network, get this, linked to focused attention and self-censorship, quiets down. It's almost as if the brain turns off its ability to criticize itself.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. I want to say a quick thank you to my guest on last week's episode, Academy Award nominated and Grammy Award winner, Melissa Manchester. If you didn't get to hear it, you can listen to all of our episodes at entertalkradio.com/makingit or download our app and take us with you. Also, be sure to tune in next week to hear my conversation with Emmy Award-winning film composer Miriam Cutler. I'd like to take a moment to also thank the companies that help me sound my best, whether I'm performing live or in the studio recording and producing music. Blue Microphones, Taylor Guitars, Duesenberg Guitars, Seymour Duncan Pickups, Mesa Boogie Amps, D'Addario Strings and Planet Waves, Motu Digital Performer, IK Multimedia, Fishman Acoustic Amps, and Exotic Effects. So often I get asked questions about the creative process, so I created this show to focus on what it takes to have a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the music business. You're really in for a treat, as I've invited my friends, some of the best and brightest in music, to share their stories on how they have influenced the music that has shaped our lives. I guarantee you're going to love it. So let's get started. My guest this week is Educator artist John Shaw. John Shaw was born in El Paso, Texas in 1944 and lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico for the first year of his life. His family moved to Miami in 1946, where his father taught at the University of Miami for 19 years before becoming vice president for development at Miami Dade College. John's mother was a first-grade teacher, and John followed suit along with two of his three siblings, who also became lifelong teachers. After high school, John attended the University of Miami, completing his Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics, prior to attending Harvard University for an MAT degree in mathematics. After graduating from Harvard, he began his career by spending his first 4 years teaching at Melbourne High School near Cape Kennedy, Florida, followed by a 4-year tenure at North Miami Beach Senior High School, which is where we first met. The next 7+ years were dedicated to teaching other teachers in his school district. It was at that point of his career that John was invited to join the faculty of the newly opened New World School of the Arts, which was patterned after the High School of Performing Arts in New York. John currently lives in Miami with his wife, Diane. Their daughter, Katie, lives in Portland, Oregon, and their son, Matthew, lives with his wife, Caitlin, in Austin, Texas. John has been retired for over 9 years, but that's kind of a misnomer, as he is still teaching privately and continues to live an inspired and very creative life. Please welcome my guest, John Shaw. Hey, John.
Hey, Terry. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Listen,
yes.
This is, I'm thinking, I started looking at, when I went on looking at all the people you've had on this program, I'm looking at Stephen Bishop and Dave Koz and Melanie Taylor and Melissa Manchester and Kev Moe, and I'm thinking, what's going on, because, if I start talking about teaching mathematics, like I said a minute ago, they're going to start dropping, they'll drop like flies out in L.A., man. So,
they'll drop like flies everywhere.
You better pack this in good,
I've given this a lot of thought. The reason that I wanted to have our conversation, and you've been one of the guests that I've been looking forward to having on my show once we establish the format of the show, because is to really talk about education, not just math. I know you're a mathematician, but you're also a very creative person. You play music, you draw. And you live a very interesting life, and it's not just about math. So, and you and I both have come from a family of teachers, which we will be talking about. So we share that in common, but it's really, this show, and the reason that I'm so curious to talk to you today and share your story with our listeners is because education is so important to me. And I know it is to you because you've dedicated your life to it, but you also still come at it from a creative artist as well. So that's where we're going with today's conversation. So to all you listeners, don't get scared about math.
Okay. There's some good stuff in it, but I won't go on there.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about math.
Yeah.
So let's start off with my first question. You went to Harvard University for an MAT degree in mathematics, and I really love that they combine the words art and math in your master's degree. Can you tell me what exactly is a Master of Arts degree in mathematics, and why is the word art?
It's a Master of Arts in Teaching degree. Got it. MAT is Master of Arts in Teaching. So it really was taking people who had no, quote, education courses and going through a program, year and a half approximately, filling in doing some math classes, but also taking education courses of high quality. It's kind of... education courses can be education courses one way or the other, and just like education can be misunderstood. And so it's like teaching methods. I wonder. My father said, sometimes he thought that there are born teachers and there are people who you can educate to become one. But so sometimes you can step in the classroom and you just have a sense of what it is to communicate and to relate to people and so on. And I don't know with myself. I know with growing up the way I did, I had a lot of that in me, but this kind of fine-tuned it and caused me to question things and to look at methods to improve or whatever, It's just kind of it wasn't the arts itself that was there, but there were things where we would do stuff. I remember I did a thing, a number line, and it was, number line, we were talking about modular arithmetic where you go in a cycle, and so, like you count up to like the days of the week, you count to 7, and then you reset back to 1, and then you go around and you reset. So I did this thing. I found a wheel, and I used a long line with a bunch of numbers. I just hung numbers on it like a clothesline, and it would wrap around so you could see that the number 13 is the same as 6, because you're 1 less than 14 and 1 less than 21 and 1 less, but they all, when you rolled them around, they would fit on top of each other. So it's like one of these aha things.
Very similar to a musical scale, going from A to G, A, B, C, D, F, G, and starting over again.
Yeah. But, I think of when I'm teaching kids, I'll talk about typically the high school experience can be walk into the sterile room, put your brain by the door, and then, because, it ain't really for what you're doing in there, you're just being trained. And so anything from the outside world doesn't enter in. So at New World, I would do magical things like bring in a Campbell soup can and say, we got to find a surface area and rip off the label. And the label, when you rip it off carefully, it's a rectangle. And so there's an area to it. And kids would go, whoa! Artistic kids are very expressive, right? But maybe they're putting me on, but they're going, this is a real thing. And so it integrates with your life. So, that's the art is probably the art of communication.
I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I think that is on a higher level sometimes than even the math you're teaching.
Right. You have told me before that you consider teaching, the main thing about teaching is the art of communication. And I love that.
Yeah, there's an art to it. And you got to recognize, and some of my worst teachers, some of the people I can't stand the most are these people who totally can teach it. They know how to do it really well. They can't explain it. And then it's also a human endeavor. Math is a very human endeavor, not a technical thing. At least for me, I've got to put the human side into it. because if it isn't, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. It ain't no fun to me, you know?
Mm-hmm. And if it's not fun for you, it's not going to be fun for the students.
No. So,
John, you've said that in the past that teaching high school kids helps you stay fresh and keeps you challenged. What do you mean by that?
Well, you just need to be in a room full of them, or even one-on-one. They can see right through you, man. They totally can see right through you if you're bullshitting and you're phony. And I learned from a guy named Steve Brown, who was a teacher I had at Harvard. He said, if you don't know the answer to whatever they're talking about, just say, look, I don't know the answer, but I'll look it up. So I got early on realizing I'm not up there as a perfect expert. I'm faulty. I'm frail. I make mistakes, and so as long as I can do it with a sense of humor, and they know I'm serious about it, the kids know I'm serious about what I want to, do, then it totally is going to. They're going to accept me, and it's kind of like I'm not pushing myself on them to be my super friend, whatever. If it happens, it happens, but it's the thing of being real, and I think if you the thing they need so much is to have somebody real who listens. I can't tell you the countless number of adolescents who don't get listened to. Their parents are too busy, or it's like my daughter, Katie. I value my kids a lot. Katie would say very often through her growing experiences, "Dad, I'm this age now." Oh crap! I'm still I'm pegging her at 7. She's now a 10. It is different, isn't it? And it's just the thing of listening and and the thing also that she comes back at me, my son too, is like, stop. Don't think you know what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying before you apologize. Not apologize, but then comment or whatever. And it's kind of like, and I take it well because it's a gift. They're giving me something. So what I say is, in relation with kids of that age, and even in early adulthood, that I find that what I get out of the interaction are gifts. They're gifts about me, about how I'm acting, how I'm understanding, how I'm, how I'm failing, how I'm blocking, how I'm whatever, and so it's a really great thing. And it does. It keeps me fresher and more and younger and more aware than all these guys I have breakfast with on Saturday mornings. And, I had this morning, it's like, I think I'm more awake. Now, I don't know that I'm going to give them the link of this show because, I want to continue that breakfast with them. So I'll be, we'll see, you know what I mean? Or maybe it'll help them. I don't know. It's just kind of, I think that thing of a youthful attitude, not childish so much, but its youthful attitude is so important. And I think you have to cultivate it.
Right.
I think I've told you that some of the people I value the most have been my elders, but these are the people who still have a sense of humor, who still get active, who still look at the world in a fresh way, who can still not just live on their old tapes, play their old tapes out, but really are looking at things and questioning and still having that fresh approach to life. It's just, man, I want to be like that. So, kids are that way. High school kids are that way, and that's what I like. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about our families. You and I both grew up in a family of educators, and both of our mothers and fathers, as well as other family members, were teachers, and we all share a deep respect for education. Why do you think being a teacher is so important?
Well, it's, Thomas Jefferson said that the foundation of this democracy had to be a well-educated populace. It was very important. So all the things we're talking about now with what's going on with education, with the rich schools and the poor schools and the charter schools and all this stuff, and are we siphoning money away from public education into the other stuff as we appear to be in Florida, for example, now? All of this we need to, there needs to be civic education. I never took civics, but I know it's important. I took American history, but, I missed that one. But I know about the social interactions we have to have and what we need to understand about our democracy and how it was founded and the separation of powers and our Constitution and so forth that are so important. And we can lose it because I wonder right now with younger people, do they have a sense of history? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I was born in El Paso only because the family doctor at the last year of World War II, they pull all the doctors into regional places. So my mother said it was a bumpy ride, 50 miles from Las Cruces to El Paso to have me. But World War, I was born the same month as D-Day. And so it's always caused me to look back at that. And even World War I, you visit England, World War I is still in their visor. It hit them bad and it hit them hard. And all these, the messages of history that you look at with, when the Archduke was, they had all these, pacts and blocks and all these countries with, interactions. And so when the Archduke Ferdinand was shot, et cetera, blah, 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 I'm saying history right now, but it's like all these aggressions started up and all these tenuous, things like the NATOs of that time, were, the interaction was crazy. And so World War II, look at the lessons that we had, or Vietnam, or whatever, and a lot of the stuff that I lived through, I know that people don't even get through it when they're studying for the AP history test. Right. They don't have enough time, it's like crazy.
Yeah. There's a very short memory in our culture.
It's a page in a book.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a page in a book.
If you go to Rome and see the Colosseum, or you're in Greece and you see the Parthenon, you understand that it's deeply embedded in their history is embedded in their culture. We're heading into our first commercial break, so I want to talk more when we come back about the state of public education and also just talk a little bit about your art background as well. And also about health and diet and exercise, because I know that's important to you additionally. Yeah. So anyway, I'm here with...
we can
no,
do
it's
that
not.
One.
So
they're going to like that one. Yeah.
They will. Okay. We'll be right back with more stories not about math with educator, artist John Shaw.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tara Cacconi, and you're listening to Making It with Terry Woolman.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with John Shaw, educator and artist. And John, I wanted to ask you, in addition to being a mathematician and a teacher, you've also lived a creative life, both as a visual artist and musician. Can you tell me about your art and music background?
Yeah. I was thinking about, since I talked to you, or you texted me Sunday and talked about this. My father was a English professor, but he was also taught creative writing. And somewhere back in there, he was book editor of the Miami Herald. Did that for a number of years until he passed away. But he also did some things in the community. He and some friends bought up a newspaper in Coconut Grove called the Village Post. It was a monthly thing. And so I got involved with him in going to the printers and putting it to bed once a month. We'd stay up all night, and back then it was no computers. You just had a guy there working on the lithograph machine, and he would give you the copy, and you'd cut and paste it and use, spirit gum and that kind of thing, and cut heads and put pictures and ads together and, composing that. And then I started doing some drawings in there too, just little cartoons and stuff. But then I'm thinking in college, there was a guy who used to teach engraving and etching, and he'd drive across the campus on a moped with a white ice cream suit, and his white beard would be flowing, and I said, I got to take this guy. Well, I had to take a beginning drawing class and a design class, and then I got into his etching. So I did some etchings and stuff like that, and learned a lot about design and drawing and so forth. And one of the things that I learned there, one of the great teachers said that the whole concept, the brain is a interpreter, but it's a sensor. And when you're drawing from life and you want to really do it, your hand and your pencil or your brush or whatever has to be on a circuit directly from there, from your eye to your brain, from your eye directly through your arm down to your pencil. And the brain has to stay out of it, because if you aren't careful, when you're drawing a tree, it looks like a lollipop with, cotton candy on the top, and all your trees look alike, and they aren't, Or every face has almond eyes and the mouth and, the nose with both sides and all this kind of crazy stuff. So when you look at a thing like, there's a wonderful book by Betty Edwards, she's out in California, a college professor, I guess, called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And there's a lot of stuff in there. She talks about this kind of thing, of the brain activity that is, it's awesome, and the whole thing. And I got turned on by that stuff. Well, okay, after that, I'm trying to remember exactly when. I was tutoring, and I had a kid that I did a birthday card for, and it was cartoons. Well, this morphed because the father was the surgeon that my wife worked for, and so on. They got me connected somehow, and I was making birthday cards for rich people. And there were cartoon panels, big, on big poster board, but good quality Bristol board. And I'd lay out a cartoon panel, and basically I'd go to the family members of the person. There was a guy named Parker who was on the Forbes list up in New York, multi-boku money, and so I go to interview the wife and so on, find out they met at Coney Island. So I get this whole thing where they're in 1890s outfits under the boardwalk. And, of course, the crabs are saying, under the boardwalk, down by the sun. You know, it's crazy, all in unison, and it's up there, and snails with question marks on their head and all this kind of cutesy stuff. And it's just, I would do this. And, so I did a number of those. I'm thinking, well, somebody said, well, you gotta print these out. And no, they're one of a kinds, and they took a lot of time, and that was not a thing to do because they're labor intensive and you got this deadline, and I hate the deadline thing of it. This is always one of those things. It's the quash and when you're a creator, when you're creative in music or art, when you've got the deadline, it hurts you, anyway, and you have to learn to deal with it. Right.
Right. Yes, you did.
But then I did a book. A guy came with a kid's book. We wanted to do a kid's book, and I illustrated that. I ended up going with him up to New York to try to sell it. It didn't happen. The pictures were great, But everything. Then I did a geography book called Everything is Somewhere. It's done by a geography professor and my friend Jack. Everything is Somewhere. It's a book, and then just little illustrations and stuff.
Is that book out? Is that something people can find?
I'm trying to think when we did it. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it might still be up on Amazon or.
Everything is Somewhere. It could be. There's still some kicking around.
I'm gonna look for it.
I did commercial art stuff. I got to the point in teaching. There was somewhere around, let me think when it was. It was a couple years after I left Miami Beach. I wasn't married. It was kind of like, what's this all about? I'm going to work. I don't know what this is about. I'm going, I'm putting on a tie. I'm doing that stuff. I'm doing math for the county, et cetera. And it kind of like, so I took a year's leave of absence, and somehow that I got picking up commercial art stuff, and I was doing some magazine articles and some magazine renderings and bedspread layouts for a company, and I ended up doing boat lettering. I did some of that, which George Hardy told me. George Hardy was an old friend who we and I played bagpipes together, a lawyer. He said that's a real traveling game because all you need is a good brush. Yes. And you get yourself an old tin can, like a Pepsi can or a beer can, and you go to a gas station, and you go in there and you get a little bit of gasoline out from the pump because it's always dripping, and you pick up a piece of tar off the road, and you swirl it around and make paint. And that's it. No overhead.
That's
and
great.
You go lettering. Yeah. So that's an option for people out there in L.A. So a lot of asphalt,
Right.
So I did some of that, but that was kind of fun, but it taught me in terms of it showed me something with the pure art versus commercial art side. And a lot of people would go and say, well, I can do this job. I'll have a commercial art job, but I really want to paint. I want to do whatever. And one inhibits the other. It's very, very hard to do one and then just do something on your own for yourself. You come home and it's just, it's a tough one. And I know for musicians, it's no doubt it's the same feeling and sense. And how do you work through it? It's like, I want to paint portraits. But I want to do them right. But then you got people who are buying the portraits, and you can't let their nose look like that, right? It's got to be a pretty nose. You can't do and it's like, how much do you compromise yourself because you're in this thing where they're paying you are they going to pay you for to be free about it, or are they going to regulate what you do? So anyway, these were things I learned.
So, and how did you mention playing bagpipes? How did you start being a bagpipe player? Did you wake up one day and just want to do that?
No.
Did it all?
George Hardy, whom I mentioned, was a lawyer, and my friend Hetty, who you met, Hetty needed a lawyer, and I was 21, and I could claim I could go down to courthouse and say, yes, she's a resident. We were great friends, and that was it. but I got in the car with George and Hetty to go downtown to the judge, and in the back was a brochure from Grandfather Mountain, Highland Games. I said, oh, man, bagpipes. I always liked the bagpipes, you know. I had taken piano. I had taught myself guitar, you know, and I love musical instruments and the whole thing. So, he says, well, listen, our band has kind of like a Baptist church. They had split up and they're reforming. You know, Baptists do this a lot. You know, they split. Okay. And so he said, why don't you come? So I did. And that was 1965. And so I was with the band and learned in about, they said I did good. I think I learned, and I got it to where I was putting pipes on my back, blowing them in about 9 weeks, I think. And it was like they were looking like, whoa, how did you do that? It's kind of hard in the beginning because the coordination is crazy.
I remember I remember you teaching me how to play bagpipes, and I mostly hyperventilated. You know. Oh
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's true. Do you remember the time we did a coffee house together?
I do. I played acoustic guitar and you played bagpipes, and I think we came marching in together, because you had to get the pipes going, you know, out in the hallway. That was really. It was strange and original and unique.
Did they clap? I don't remember.
I think we confused them. But by the way, speaking of those cards, those personalized birthday cards that you used to make, you did that. You sent me a series of them when I was away in college at Berkeley, and you sent one a day, and I didn't know what it was until the end. I still have those. Yeah. I've saved them. I was looking at them yesterday, and
they were like on 3x5 cards, weren't they?
Yeah, they were 3x5 cards, and like you said, just characters and crab singing and different things. But it was really wonderful artistically, and made me so happy that that's one of the treasures that I've carried with me through my life and still keep.
Good.
I want to talk a little bit about. We had a very interesting experience with education in the early 70s when you and I met. And we basically, our experience was at a progressive high school where you were employed as a teacher. I was a student. In the school, the program that we're in as part of the school is called Potential Unlimited. And it operated on a bold philosophy that high school, just like life, should be an environment where every student should be accountable for their own personal success, even if at times it meant failure. And for me, it was a great experience. I'm wondering, in hindsight, what did you think of that experience?
Well, it was. I was up for it. I remember when Ken Jenkins came and asked me if I'd do it, and I did. And Gloria Smith was another teacher, wonderful, and Ellen Davis was wonderful, drama teacher, English and drama, and me. And it's like, okay, what's this about? Well, it's kind of very open-ended, you know, and I know that a lot of people are highly structured and need to know exactly what they do next. And I was up for being a little bit, we'd figure out our way. And so there were times it was frustrating because kids would sort of drift a lot. And they'd come up with ideas, and the ideas wouldn't really cohese, you know, it's kind of like not gel and stuff. But there was some good stuff that came out of it. I remember doing a drawing workshop, and, you know, kids were, the enthusiasm was wonderful. It just, one girl started a quilting workshop, you remember? And
I did.
Was doing stuff, and, you know, it was all kind of I think the thing we lose in education is we put people in egg carton rooms and regiment the time. And I understand it. I mean, we had kids abuse the time there with free time and different kind of block hours and so on like that. But we forget the human aspect that we're just force feeding too much. And you know, I felt there that was a very rich and a lot of getting to know people. It was good for me. I felt I had another relationship level with people, because a lot of times it's one-on-one with people. Say, well, what do you want to do? What are the kind of things you like to study, and like, things like that. So it was very interactive that way. But it was it could be it could feel a little loosey-goosey sometimes, and
well, it did. I mean, some of the kids were
okay.
Some of the kids were getting high and wasting the time. And some other kids like myself were stumbling around learning how to be accountable and responsible for my own education. And it's really, I think, gave me some fantastic tools in life to be able to jump off a cliff and not have a safety net and not be afraid to fall on my ass and then brush myself off and get up again and keep going. That's what I learned from it. Was it as controversial? I mean, looking back as what it felt like at the time.
You mean controversial with
the actual program? Or in the community. I know that.
Well, I'll tell you about the community, and I was thinking as you're talking, I was fortunate enough to be in 3 schools who were innovative and different. The first one, Melbourne High School, started, the principal, Frank Brown, decided, this was in the era of Sputnik, when here the Russians send off this thing, and we're behind mathematics, science, where suddenly our pants are down, and we're really in trouble. And he
By the way, we have about a minute and a half before our next break, so I just want to give you a heads up.
But I think there's a thing about, I could describe those schools more, but in all 3, I see a thing called surface tension, and it's when the district has this, excelling school, something that's different. Over time, what happens is that surface tension by the district, by the school board, will attempt to pull it down and homogenize it with everybody else, whether it's, whether there's jealousy or whether there's a fear of people stepping out and taking risks. I don't know, but I've seen that, and it's I've just come to realize it, as I mature or try to. And kind of say, okay, this is kind of what happens. But I'm glad I was there for the ride,
Me too. Yeah. I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely.
When we're heading into our next break, but when we come back, I want to talk about retirement and what that means to you and what you're doing with that part of your life, and about your tutoring versus teaching in schools, and we're going to get down and talk about politics and education. So stick around. I'm here with my friend John Shaw. We'll be right back.
Everybody, this is Phil Perry. Stay tuned for another portion of Making It with Terry.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on InterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on InterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jonathan Butler, and you're listening to Making It.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome back. I'm here with John Shaw, educator and artist, and we were just talking during the break about music and art, and you read a beautiful quote to me, and I'd love for you to let's talk about that. Can you share that?
Yeah. This is out of National Geographic. I was tutoring last night in the Barnes & Noble, so every once in a while when I'm waiting, I'll go pick up a magazine and run through it. And this is one, it said Keith Jarrett. Well, I love Keith Jarrett. Keith Jarrett, I remember the Keln Cathedral was the first thing I ever heard. It's crazy. Yeah. So it says, with jazz improvisation, basic brain activity is fundamentally different. When you improvise, the internal network, which is associated with self-expression, shows increased activity. In the outer network, get this, linked to focused attention and self-censorship, quiets down. It's almost as if the brain turns off its ability to criticize himself. I don't know if you feel that, but it's like, you don't criticize yourself. You let it go. When Keith Jarrett when Keith Jarrett sits down in front of an audience, he purposely pushes how it's made out of its mind, moving his hands to keys he had no intention of playing. He says, I'm bypassing the brain completely. I am being pulled by a force that I can only be thankful for. He says, it's a vast space in which I trust there will be music. He says, it's his creative artistry, nurtured by decades of listening, learning, and practicing melodies, emerges when he is least in control. I know when I've done some stuff in the visual arts, this direct connection from eye to hand, there are times when I'm really in the groove of it. I can look at a blank page. I have before. I've seen it often where I can see the thing, and my pen just outlines it. It's just like it's already there. Very crazy.
Right.
And another thing that I've expressed and talked about when I talk to other artists is that time loses its value. When you're immediately in that visual thing, I think that the clock is on the left side, because on the other side, you lose track of time, and you kind of like hours have gone by and you're still at it and you didn't even realize it. So it's a very interesting meditative thing. I think improv also is just you go off into another zone, and
it's beautiful. It's a living, breathing meditation as well. It's just an amazing place.
And you can't be self-critical. You have to allow it to happen, but you've got to do the practice. You've got to that experience you have is going to it's going to make it richer. So I don't know. I'm just guessing.
An artist relationship with self-criticism is a very interesting relationship, because it's the criticism, the looking and the self-doubt pushes you to broaden yourself as an artist, but then you need to have the skill to turn it off and just allow the art to happen. So it's an important element in improving as an artist, I think. I really understood that for the first time when I was working, when I first moved to LA, with Joe Sample the amazing pianist and arranger, and sitting at the piano, and Joe was playing a couple of ideas for me and asking which one was better. Is this good? Is this any good? And I thought, this is one of the most brilliant musicians on the planet. And he's doubting. He's not sure which is better. And I was confused by it, but then I was enthralled by it because I realized that's what makes him so great. You never stop the questioning, but you learn to just quiet it down, put it over on the shelf when you're actually performing. And I'm always encouraging my students and reminding them to not be self-critical when they're playing.
Yeah, I remember.
Go ahead.
The first visual art dean at New World School of the Arts was a big African-American guy named Ed Love. And he said to me one time, he said, we had a lot of pigeons around the school, and the math department decided the school mascot would be a pigeon. So we had the fighting pigeons, right? So he said, he tells his kids, he'd tell the young and old ones, at the school, he'd say, look, the art you're creating is like pigeon shit. It's just something that you do. And, and then you move on. You don't glorify it and magnify it and worship it. It's just it's an expression of what you did, and you move on from it. So it helps you not to get all stuck up in the, stuck and rigid. So it's,
and attached. I love that. Yeah. To not take it so seriously.
Good?
Yeah. I love that.
He's gone, but he's great. Yeah.
Let's focus on the New World School of the Arts where you taught, and a few of your students have gone on to great success, including recently Terrell McCraney, who co-wrote the Academy Award-winning movie Moonlight. He was a student there of yours.
I had him for 10th grade geometry, man.
Nice. And Alex Lacamoire, who's the music director of the Broadway show Hamilton. I've got a question for you, John. Can you recognize greatness in your students before they recognize it in themselves? What you've taught a lifetime.
Well,
what do you see in people?
I'm looking down at kids that I saw now. Bernard Chang might be different. Bernard was in my calculus class, and he was, you expect Chinese kids to make A's, Bernard hung on to a C, I think. But fuzzy-headed kid, he went on. He's out in L.A. now, I think. He's creating comic books and stuff like that, and heroes and so on. He went on and worked for Disney for a while in designing rides and stuff. And he kind of went counter against the teachers at the place in visual art, because a lot of these young boys come in, they want to be cartoonists, and they have the stylistic stuff that they've looked at all the time, and the anime or whatever, whatever it is, and they're trying to break them from that and get them into the classical training, and then then go out. Well, Bernard kind of hung on to it, and this guy has made a name for himself out there. I know people like Alex Chitty, who is doing some amazing things now with some kind of geometric kind of, what would I call it? It's op art kind of, but she's making murals and she's doing all sorts of stuff, cutting paper and all that stuff. And she had it in her. You could see in her character there's a clarity that going on. I think of Angie Spivak, whose father, Charles Spivak, was a big band director, and Angie wanted to go off to big things up in Tennessee, and do all sorts of great things and get on stage and all that stuff. She ended up. She's the worship arts director at our church, which is a big church. Is 3,000-4,000 people with about 3 campuses, got a internet campus and so on around the world. And, I just saw her this morning, that she's right up on my mind. And she was a go-getter then. I think of Katie Finneran. Katie Finneran was one of our earliest. She went on to Broadway. Billy Corbin had a camera in his hand all the time. He was a go-getter. He's done documentaries now about Miami cocaine cowboys, and he's done stuff on the University of Miami with their famous but infamous football team. Randy Emmett is also his buddy, and Hernan Boss was a visual artist. You could see these people coming to something, and the one of the things about New World was that I really truly felt it was an alternative school where a lot of the kids, if they had been in a math class in a big high school somewhere out there, they'd be sitting in the corner and being left alone because they're weird. And in this place, the school was very mutually supportive, so you could see people helping people and interacting in the whole thing. So it was a wonderful place to spend 20 years of my life.
Beautiful.
And you could see people. You get kids that come in just to be in a nice high school where the academics were great and the whole thing. But okay, you could see those are good, but you got people who rose up within it, who you could see they had a direction, and they really, this was tugging at their heart to do this as a lifetime, and whatever they had to do to make it was important.
So that's apparent. You do recognize that in your students when you look at them.
Yeah, mostly yes. I mean, people will grow up and surprise you.
Right, in both ways.
They'll come back and say, "Shaw, I'm a pediatrician now," or what?
Right.
Or how about if they're in math? That's even crazier.
Right.
What are you doing in that? Come on. So. Yeah.
Let's switch gears for a second, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've got some other important things to ask you in our last 6 minutes of the show. But let's quickly talk about our current administration with our U.S. Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, who does not come from an education background, and wants to create a closed system, and that's more for profit than for education. Clearly, I have a point of view on this, but what are your thoughts on the current administration's view on public education?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we seem to value, we can count things. We can count, when you have a big house and a big car, we can count it. We can see it. It's visible there. We don't count character. We don't see the human aspects of each other enough. And so if somebody has a lot of money, we can count that more, and they have more, and so therefore they seem to have more voice in this current administration and in the world today. I think there's a real troubling aspect that the people who have more seem to be getting more, and it's lopsided, and there's only so much resources in the world, and the precious few seem to be greedy about it and wanting more of it, So that's underlying this whole thing for me. And so when I look at Betsy DeVos, probably a really nice lady when you talk to her, et cetera, but she knows nothing about education, but she gave a big donation, and she donated to the campaign, and so she's got a big voice, and it upsets me. Listen, I'm a big believer in public education. It's in my veins. It's been something that's very important. We need to provide quality education for all, and so if a school is struggling, we need to do something to take care of it. But we don't siphon off the best students in that school, as seems to be happening, and leaving the kids who just the parents don't have the wherewithal to realize they could go for a voucher and whatever. It's kind of like the analogy is, well, let's stop having Social Security. Let's give everybody an account where they can invest their money and they can make great money there. Well, a lot of people don't know how to do it, and a lot of people lose their butt in the stock market. So let's try something else, because there's a lot of there are a lot of people just trying to make it. Two parents out, or a single parent trying to make a living and coming home tired as anything, and hopefully the kids are home under the latchkey or whatever. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that we need to be sensitive to and need to help them more, but I don't think that charter school is necessarily the thing that we ought to be at, And she's big on that. Big on that. So, I would like to see us really face into public education and understand, what it really should be and how are we failing at it? And support teachers, support curriculum. Don't, I think teachers in Florida have been strapped by all the regulations that come down the pike in terms of testing, and testing has flattened out a lot of the mathematics. Even to the point, listen, there's my sister-in-law says that, I'm sorry, my nephew's wife, that's better, over in Tampa says that you got to teach Algebra 2 reading from a script. You read from a script and you have PowerPoints up there. Are you
right? You suck the life out of it. Yeah, right.
Are you shitting me? Come on. What's that about? The life is sucked out of it. And what are you communicating in terms of the livelihood of mathematics? I mean, come on. So,
Thank you.
Is that saying? Am I agreeing with you?
Yeah, I'd say we're in agreement. We are 100% in agreement on that. So.
I trained you well, Terry.
You did. That you did, my friend. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In our last 2 minutes of this show, I want to close with a question that I ask all of my guests. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, keep at it, man. Keep working out. Keep moving. I keep looking at new stuff, seeing things new, try new things out. Don't be satisfied with the status quo. I find things that inspire me. I look for things that inspire me, and they're all around. And I think that's so important. I think also of how relationships with people, how sometimes you need to approach people and break through things that seem to be stopping you. And it's amazing how often when you do, a disagreement or whatever, when you do spend the time and the caring to break through, how enriching it is. So I think I'm learning at 72 years old in my life. I think I am. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Part of it is losing 30 pounds. It has actually changed my momentum, and moving me on to get things done. Because, when you're heavier, you think, well, I guess this is my body shape for the rest of my life. No, it isn't.
It doesn't.
So maybe that's a metaphor for everything else, It doesn't have to be that. It can be different. It can be fresher. It can be a new thing. So, I don't want to get old in the head.
Right.
I think it's important to keep the heart young.
I totally agree. And on that note, I want to say thank you for sharing the hour with me and sharing your life story and work. John Shaw, you are a very wonderful person, and so grateful to have you in my life. Yes, sir.
Terry, same here, man.
Love you, John.
I love you too. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
We'll see y'all next week.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run? Manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.